Hi kids, this is Mrs. Chin. I'm going to go over some factoring notes for you. I'm writing on a slate, which I'm not good at, so bear with me, but you should have all the notes. Okay, today we're going to talk about the greatest common factor. And the greatest common factor is exactly what it says. Greatest means you want the biggest. Common means they all have the same part. And factor is actually means multiplication. So you are looking for, if you look at the directions, it says pull out what they have in common and then tell what's left over. So then to tell what's left over, you have to find, you divide numbers because divide is the opposite of multiply, and you subtract exponents. So let's try one. We have 32x squared plus 40x minus 8. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the numbers. I'm going to look at 32, 40, and 8, and I want the biggest number that they can all, that would multiply to get that number, or divide, because the opposite of multiply is divide, the biggest number that they all have in common. So I have 32, 40, and 8. I'm pretty sure they all divide by 8. So if I take an 8 out, then I want to look at the letters. I have x squared, I have x, and I have nothing, no x. So they don't have any x's in common because this guy doesn't have any. And you can't have something in common if you don't have it. So the only thing all of these have in common is 8. So then when you tell me what's left over, I'm going to divide the numbers. So if I have 32 and I take out 8, 32 divided by 8 means I have 4 left. And I didn't do anything to those x's, so it's still x squared. 40 divided by 8 is 5. And then I have an x left because we didn't touch the x's. And then 8 divided by 8 is 1. And you need to put the 1 there. And so this whole entire chunk right here is what you have is your answer. So this is the greatest common factor. They all have an 8 in common. And then this is what's left over. So you divide the numbers and then subtract the exponents, but we didn't do that. So let's try one where we subtract the exponents. So let's say we have, the next example says 5x squared plus 30x to the 4 plus 5x to the 3. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at numbers. I've got a 5, a 30, and a 5. So what number can divide into all of those? The biggest number is a 5. Then I look at the x's. I have 2 x's here, I have 4 x's here, and I have 3 x's here. So the biggest number of x's that they all have, which ends up being the smallest exponent, because if this guy has 2, and this guy has 4, and this guy has 3, they all have at least 2 of them, right? You can't take out more than they have. So it's really the smallest value, so they all have an x squared value. So then you tell me what's left. So we're going to divide the numbers. So 5 divided by 5 is 1, and then you subtract the exponents. 2 take away 2 gives you no more x's. And I'm not going to write that there because I don't need it. I already have the 1 sitting here. Plus, I have 30 divided by 5 is 6. I had 4 x's and I took out 2. So 4 minus 2 gives me 2 x's left. And then I have 5 divided by 5 is 1. And 3 take away 2 gives me 1 x left. And this is the answer to the whole problem. That's what they have in common. Now, let's talk about this for a second. This one back here is optional. I'll make him yellow for you. You can or cannot have this one. Doesn't matter. If you have him, that's great. If you don't have him, that's great. This one over here, let's make him a better color. Let's make him, and we're just gonna make him big and blue because this one's here. He has to be here. There's nothing else that goes with him, and you have to have a placeholder. If there's 1, 2, 3 parts up here, there better be 1, 2, 3 parts in the parentheses. So he has to be there. This guy is optional because there's an X with him, so he has a friend to visit him. Okay, let's try one more together. The next example you have is 40 m to the 5th n squared plus 36 m to the 3rd n squared plus 40 m n to the 3rd. So there's a lot going on there. So the first thing we look at is what's the biggest number that can divide into all of these. So I've got 40, I've got 36, and I've got 40. So the biggest number that goes into all of them is going to be a 4. because 40 divides by 4, 36 divides by 4, and 40 divides by 4. Then I'm going to look at m's. I have 5, I have 3, and I have 1. There's 1 m there. So the most that any of them have is 1, because you can't take away more than you have, and you only have 1 here. And then I have 2, 2, and 3 n's, so they all have at least 2 n's. Okay, so this is the greatest common factor, and then what's left. So I divide and subtract. 40 divided by 4 is 10. If I have 5 m's and I take away 1, that gives me 4 left. If I have 2 and I take away 2, there's no n's left. Plus 36 divided by 4 gives me 9. 3 take away 1 gives me 2 m's left. 2 take away 2 gives me no n's. Plus 40 divided by 4 is 10. M take away m is no m's. And 3 take away 2 gives me 1 n. And then if you want, you should look at these 3 in the inside and say, hey, do these have anything in common? Because up here, these guys could have divided by 2, but then you would have had more in common. So you want the biggest number, because 10 and 9 and 10 do not divide into the same thing. I've got M4, M2, and an N, so none of the letters repeat themselves. And so this is your final answer.